It's Paul Valencia. Coming up with a new way to say that every week.
That was good. You seem pretty excited about yourself there.
it's the Clark County Today Sports Podcast. Woo!
Thanks, Paul.
Paul Valencia is here. And Tony Liberatore and Cale Piland.
Good afternoon.
You know, what's funny is I was on the phone just before you guys got here, and someone said, "Oh, you're doing your podcast now?" I said, "I'm waiting for the talent to arrive, and they just show up whenever they want."
That's
true. So anyway, the talent is here. Tony Liberatore, Associate Principal of Fort Vancouver High School and a former athletic director and coach.
Go Trappers.
And Cale Piland, the athletic director for all Evergreen Public Schools. Doesn't that sound important? Every week I do that.
Yeah, you can make anything sound important.
Yeah, that's right. So we are here. This is, what is the date today? It's November 7th. So we'll probably post this on November 8th because I'm slow like that. But we are going to talk Week 10 football playoff games, and then maybe into the future of what we think will happen for football. We will have a follow-up on sideline behavior because we got some feedback. Okay,
Great.
Tony, we got feedback
We
from the
love
podcast.
feedback.
Our one listener that cared about sideline.
That's
behavior.
right.
Thank you.
And I'm going to mention that my career has changed, and the reason I'm going to bring it up this week is been a wild last couple of weeks for me, and I'll get into that in a bit. But it also reminded me that you two also had career changes, and you're still in education, thank God, because the students of today could not live without your wisdom.
Yeah,
That's correct. Uncle Tony needs to be there.
Yes, but yeah. Anyway, we'll get into that. We have WIA State Championship cross country this week. We'll say congratulations to those runners, or good luck to those runners, And then it's Veterans Day week, kind of, I guess, because we've already had some Veterans Day activities.
Yep.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We'll go into pro and college sports, and we'll talk Gino, because Cale is, I don't know if Cale... Gino. So anyway, but we're going to do that. So, but let's start, as we always do, with local sports, high school sports, football. Week 10... playoffs, they are Friday and Saturday, and we've got a bunch of teams from Southwest Washington in it, but over the last couple of years, things have changed a lot. Cale, you want to bring our readers up to date? Our readers. I did it again. You guys are listeners on a podcast.
They read, just not this transcript.
Yes, they are readers.
They are readers.
If we have readers of this podcast,
yes.
Well, that is impressive.
Did you check out that transcript?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
We AI transcribed me. AI can't even figure out what I'm saying. So,
Actually, I've looked at it a couple times. It does a good job for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, Cale, take us through what they're doing for Week 10 now as opposed to what they used to do. I mean,
How far back you want to go?
Yeah, I don't know.
1925.
A few years.
So the most recent changes are one. Now everybody in the state participates at the 3A, 4A, 2A, and I believe 1A level. That everybody is participating in the Week 10 crossovers because these are technically, as we have discussed, these are technically not WIA state playoff games. So it kind of gets confusing as to, well, what do you call it if it's not a playoff game? Because it is a playoff game.
Loser out.
Is it a district playoff game? Which is how it was. It was looked at one point in time. But now everybody in the state's doing it. So. Yeah, I don't know what you want to call it, but
I've always tried to call it, and for 4A and 3A, I would call it state preliminary round.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because even in the old days, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there was 3 or 4 different leagues and districts that got together and did that.
It was only the west side of the state that was really doing it, right. And then the east side was doing their own thing. But basically, everybody had to figure out how to get to 16.
Right. But it wasn't a district or by district with us.
No, it was literally you could have called it the west side playoff agreement because it was everybody on the west side of the state.
But 2A and 1A were district crossovers, so we just called them district playoffs for that. But now I'm just easier to call it state preliminary round.
Yeah, because everybody's in the states doing it, and those games are seeded. So it also used to be when it was the West Side Agreement or the preliminary agreement, whatever you wanted to call it, that it was predetermined that the number 1 team from District 4 would play the number 4 team from District 2 or whatever. So you could kind of start looking at who you thought you might play. Now you don't know until Sunday after the seeding meeting on Sunday morning who you're going to play. But yeah, those 32 teams are seeded, and I will say it's not necessarily seeded 1 through 32. That's kind of how they start with their rankings, but they also will look because it's 32 teams. So a lot of times, is there a ton of difference between 10 to 18? Because there's so many teams, you're kind of start splitting hairs with the difference between 29 and 28. Right. So I think they really try to look at making sure the matchups are acceptable. They try to limit travel as much as they can within those. They obviously don't want teams from the same league playing each other in that first round. But
for example, if you had a 16 and a 17 seed that were from the same league, you might make one an 18, keep the 16 and make someone else the 18. Right?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that for this round they don't release they don't tell you who was number 1. They don't tell you who was number 32.
I was about to say that if I was full-time sports, and I'm going to get to that in a bit later, but I would break this case wide open, Cale. I'd find out, why is Evergreen number 11 instead of number 9? Darn it! Come on. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if Evergreen's 11 or 9. I was just throwing that out there, but yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, then you take of the 32 teams, then you will have your 16 teams that will get reseeded by virtually the same committee next week, and those will be seeded into a WIA bracket, and then we move forward with the official state playoffs.
Tony, you got something to say. I could tell.
I don't actually, but I like the new format.
I'm a poker player. Can you tell? I just totally misread your face right there.
What am I holding here? No, I like the new format. I like that they, because it used to be. Well, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, right? It used to be like in August, you knew what seed you were going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And you're going to play this. You're going to, especially that West Side's history. So I like that they.
Well, and before anything was seeded, not only did you know where you were going into these crossover games, you knew where those games were going to place you. That was predetermined where that was going to place you into the WIA bracket.
Right.
So if you had an upset in one of these games, then say in the example I gave, whatever it was, District 4 number 1 playing District 2 number 4,
right?
And they would play for what would have gone into the bracket as District 4 number 1, which would have been a good play, a positive play. You definitely would have got a home game in the first round and maybe the first 2 rounds. If there was an upset, then all of a sudden now District 2 number 4, they just slide right into District 4 number 1, and they get that advantageous seed. So,
right. So now they will reseed after these games this week.
Yep.
And so what I find interesting is at the 1A level, which they only have 12 teams going to state, so there's 20. In theory, that means there's 24 teams in week 10. But it turns out Elma and La Center are playing each other, and they're in the same district. And I thought the seating committee would, and I know they're not in the same league, but I honestly thought they would say, no, let's maneuver this around.
Yeah, without obviously being in that meeting and knowing what those conversations were, I think they probably just weighted as the fact that there was 2 separate leagues as opposed to
the same district.
Right. And I don't think
they precedent.
And I don't think they played each other in non-league. So it's not like
I would venture. I didn't look close enough, but I would venture to guess. Like District 3, there are probably some District 3 teams that are at the 4A or 3A level that are playing each other because there are multiple leagues within District 3, and it becomes problematic if you really try to separate districts.
Yeah, true. Especially if you only have 24 teams instead of 32.
Yeah,
so.
And also travel's a concern. Sometimes they
do try to balance travel within that as best they can. I know there is some east-west travel that's happening though.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, I just enjoyed the fact that all this talk we've had about all the changes at La Center plays Elma.
Yeah, which would have been their crossover potentially anyway, right?
Exactly.
If it was the old format,
right? So I just looking at the schedule. I got Camas versus Stadium, and we're assuming Camas is the number 1 seed, which tells us that Stadium is a 30, 31, or 32. Because again, they don't. I mean, if Camas is number 1, Stadium is 32, but that doesn't mean they're 32. They might. It would be
a fair bet to say Camas is probably at least a top 2 or 3 seed, and that would make Stadium a top or a bottom 30, 31, 32 seed.
So. Skyview got a home game, so that means they're top 16, which is fair. And we're gonna, And then Evergreen got a home game.
Yep.
So again, that means top 16. I'm not, and they're a league champion at 8-1. So I'm hoping, they should have been number
Top
5.
8.
They should have been number 5. Kale. No, I'm kidding. I'm not criticizing the seeding. One, I don't know the seeding, and two, I don't.
Well, Kelso got a home game too, so all of our 3A and 4A entries got home games in the Week 10 games. So that's a good thing, and it's also a good thing financially
Absolutely.
for the league.
That's awesome. Yes,
Good point.
The athletic administrator has now spoken.
Yes, that's right.
Spoken. You spell spoken instead of an S with a $sign.
Yes,
You keep everybody at the same stadium. You don't have to pay staff more than once.
that's right.
There you go.
Ooh, there we go. So, all right. In 2A, Woodland and Ridgefield are home, and they finished first and second in league. Woodland won the league title in the 2A GSHL. So Woodland's home, Ridgefield's home. But I wanted to ask on that one, again, we don't know the seedings,
Yep.
but Woodland had 2 losses. I think so they're 7-2, and Ridgefield went 8-1. But Woodland beat Ridgefield. But
Yes.
Ridgefield has a
How do
better
you,
league.
yeah, do you know? You don't know.
You don't know. But I guess what I'm saying is when you come to state seeding, it's probably, if they both win,
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out then, because that's when the seeding is announced.
Is
the
announced
next
and released.
seeding for this. But I just wanted your thoughts on what you would think that would happen if let's say it's a 6-3 overall team that wins the league but beats I don't know. It
would
weird.
be hard to seed a team ahead of a team that they beat within their own league,
Right?
Or lost to.
Lost to,
Yeah, right. I mean, it would be odd. But one other thing that's interesting about the seeding when you look at it. So, for instance, Mercer Island is going to Kelso. Mercer Island's a 9-0.
Wow.
The reason for that is a lot of the leagues in the Seattle metro area now tier their leagues. So, and they've even done it multiple classification tiers. So you'll have a mix of a top tier in the Kinko that will have 4As and 3As, and in some cases there's actually 2A teams that are in some of these leagues. So if you are in the lower tier, you still have a way to gain access into the postseason to be one of the representatives of how many ever District 2 teams got in. But yeah, so there is, if you just look at records on some of these matchups, you're scratching your head a little bit as to, well, why would that team be having to play a road game? Well, it's because they were placed in a lower tier within their own league.
So in theory, we could say Mercer Island is 17 and Kelso is 16.
You could,
Yeah,
you could,
but that's
we don't know.
It's weird to see a 9-0 17 seed.
Yeah, 9-0 on the road. Yeah, you don't see that very often.
That's interesting. So let's see. Washougal is in. They're going on the road, and I think Columbia River won that Pigtail game on Tuesday, so they're in the playoffs. They're
Go
going
Rapids.
On the road. I know it's been a few years, but I almost thank you, Cale.
I got you. I'm here. I'm here to help, Paul. I'm here to help.
Kale.
I almost said something else.
Paul, go CR.
All right.
Just say river. Just say river.
Yeah. Just say river. That's that's much better. River Flow. Was that?
Remember that? Yeah.
I remember River Flow. All right. 1A. We got Seton Catholic beat La Center this past week in that huge showdown, and so Seton Catholic is, in theory, the 2 seed. Because Royals won 17 straight national championships. I don't know. Royals pretty awesome. They're so Royals always going to be number 1. So we assume Seton is the number 2 seed. So they're going to host a game this week on Saturday, and then La Center is home, but they're playing not at home because their field is a mud bowl.
Oh, where are they playing the game at?
I think they're playing it at Kalama.
I was going to say it must be Kalama.
Yeah. And so the Center's home against Elma, but home meaning, And then even Kingsway Christian's in the playoffs. They're going, I think, to play at Linden Christian, and so.
Ooh, there's a track for you.
That's a long track, but hey, you know what? They made
You're
it.
in it. You're in
the dance.
So congratulations.
Let's go.
Then what? Kelso, Mark Morris, Kalama, Castle Rock also made the playoffs from Southwest Washington. Now I will say, we don't choose them. From Clark County, we don't really. They're not our schools, but they're still Southwest Washington.
I'm a big homer.
Yeah,
I was just going to say right
go
now.
Go ahead, Tony.
The over under on advance. I'm going to give us 5.5.
Okay, I'm looking.
I'm going to take the over on if it's 5.5.
Oh, I think it's. Yeah, I think we'll get 6.
Okay.
Least. Yeah. Kale?
Yeah, no, I'd be
Because I was
over
thinking
that.
7.
I'd be over that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the over.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of teams at state. That's going to be great. Hey, and we got to talk about week 9 too. Seton Catholic and La Center. I was not there. Remember, there were 3 league championship games in week 9, and there's only one of me. That just sucks. So,
Well, it would have been weird for you to be there wearing your Camus gear at the Seton Catholic
I was not.
La Center game. Wouldn't that be strange, Tony?
Yeah, red and black,
Yeah.
blue and white.
I
that
only
big
wear
C
silver
on.
and black. And when I'm on the sidelines for these games, I purposely walk one sideline one quarter and the other sideline the second quarter. I do it, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm for.
Wait a minute, though. If you pick first, isn't that?
Yeah, which sideline are you on
I
first?
will say that I usually pick the side of the winning team, the team that is winning for the fourth quarter, because I just don't want to deal
want
with.
the quick interview.
I don't want to hear all the swear words and and disappointment. And it's just easier to go get my interviews right after the game when you're on the team that's. But Skyview. So I was at Skyview Camas for that game at Kiggins Bowl, Camas versus Skyview, and this is I'm gonna compliment Skyview on this one. So first of all, as you know, Camas won the game, never trailed. 3 touchdowns Camas scored in that game in a 24-14, but all 3 of them came after converting on a 4th down. So Skyview was this close to stopping them on those 3 things. But Camas scored with like 5 minutes left to go up by 10. But if that 4th down play hadn't converted, Skyview would have had the ball down 3 with about 5-6 minutes left in the game. Anything can happen there. And so after the game, Coach Kaiser from Skyview, who is retiring after this year, he's like, "Oh, Paul, if we win week 10, what's our seed going to be?" And I just told him, "Who cares what your seed is going to be? If Camas is number 1, and when your defense plays like this,
Yeah, no, they could be hosting again next week.
For
sure.
They might be an 8-7 seed or whatever, but they also might be a 12 or 13 seed. But they just took the number 1 team, to the fourth quarter, and they were in there. And so I just love the 4A playoffs because I really believe there's 12, 13, 14 teams that can win at least a game at state.
Sure.
The 14-3 matchup is not a gimme.
Right.
And so, we learned that last year, I think, when Camas fell in the first round of state. So it's just, I love how much parity there is in 4A, but your thoughts on Skyview and Camas winning again? I think, was that 13 or 14 in a row now for Camas in that rivalry?
I mean, it's still a great rivalry in my mind. I mean, I think obviously if you were to ask Coach Matheson and his staff the level of preparation it takes to compete in that game. I mean, so not only I think what's great about that matchup is not only are obviously both teams very talented, but they're both very well coached. So typically in those situations, you're not going to see somebody lose a game. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be kind of 2 heavyweights just going at it and taking punches, and someone's going to come out on top.
Right. Tony?
Yeah, and I think you were talking about possibly week 11. I think for Skyview, the best thing is that old football adage that defense travels, right? And so, I know they lost by 1 earlier in the year to, can't even remember who it was, Puyallup maybe, or no.
No, they beat them.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Decatur.
Somebody in
Decatur.
Puget Sound area.
Oh, up there, up north.
Yeah, it was a 3A team,
it was a
I think,
road game.
tough
It was a road
game.
game.
It was a weird loss. Yeah.
But my point, though, is, and then go back to what Kel said, I agree. Just, I haven't coached in a while, but coaching against Skyview, it made us better coaches. They are masters at adjustments, in-game adjustments, and anticipating what we were going to do before sometimes I even knew, just that type of stuff. Like they did a good job. And so I think that's a good point by Kel that, and Adam's always, he's an XO guy, just a freak about that stuff in a good way. And so that's a good rivalry. I know Skyview is probably a little ticked off that they haven't won since Obama was president, but here we are.
So, and back to 4A. So I was looking at the AP top 10 ranking, and they always do the also received votes. So basically 11, 12, or whatever. So Skyview, I think, is 11th on that. And then Graham Compalson's in there. And, who wants to face Graham Compalson in the first round of state? They've got an incredible quarterback. So they could be a 12 or 13 seed and shock, and wouldn't even, I say shock because you think 12 or 13 teams shouldn't be winning a game, but it wouldn't be a shock if they won. And we'll see what happens. So, and then there was the 1A championship game, Seton Catholic versus Le Center. I wasn't there, but I was told that Le Center scored on the opening kickoff, then recovered an onside kick and scored again to go up 14-0.
Yeah.
What a shock to the system.
And then it just went downhill.
But for Le Center, but for Seton Catholic, it's like boom. Hey, if you're going to be down 14-0, best time to be down 14-0 is 2 minutes into the first quarter.
Well, that's true.
If you're going to be down 4, you got plenty of time to come back.
Yeah.
Cale, what's that like to get punched like that and then to come back? Yeah. You never trailed, right, in your coaching career.
Yes.
Do you remember that one time?
I don't know how those losses got on my record, but no, especially in a game like that where you've got a really good team and things aren't necessarily going your way. I can think of a league championship game while I was at Union that we played out at Camas where that was the case. You have a really good team, so you just have to keep everybody calm, right? No, we just need to keep doing what we do, and knowing that our kids are gonna make plays and not get into a pan. Don't get outside yourself. Don't get outside of doing what has gotten you to that point. And you have a lot of faith in your kids that they're going to make plays. And for Coach Chase and Seton Catholic, I mean that's what happened. But good on Coach Lambert for trying to steal the momentum early in that ball game, right? I mean, you return the opening kickoff for a touchdown. Let's jump on them with an onside kick right here, and that's aggressive coaching. Way to go, man!
Absolutely. Tony, your thoughts?
Well, one thing just about Le Center and Seton, what I was thinking about after that game, right? Lambert's been at Le Center. This is his 27th season overall, 25 as head coach. We just talked about the winningest programs or the winningest coaches in Clark County history. He's number 2 on that list. What I'm wondering, right, is Seton has had 2 great, unbelievable years. Mm-hmm. And when Seton opened, we were like, what's it going to be like? How long until, because we were all in the AD world and the coaching world, we were thinking Archbishop Murphy and O'Day and Eastside. Well, we have something like that in Clark County. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering just about the long term of Seton, right? And they've had great back-to-back football seasons. Mm-hmm. They are legit. I've seen them play 3 times. And I mean, they are talented. And if you can go up to Le Center and, take a couple of haymakers and, like Cale said, just write it out. There's still 98% of the game left.
Right. Yeah. And also
we're good.
Seton is, I think they got a massive offensive line, but they can be physical, but they're also known for all their points. And so it's like people think it's Flash, and Flash is turf, greatest show on turf. Well, they had to play in a mud bowl.
In muck.
On natural
and when it was raining. And they still were able to do it.
So congratulations. That was a gritty. Can we say gritty? A gritty effort.
Of course you can say gritty.
It's NFL Films, 1974.
So anyway, good luck to all the Week 10 football teams. I will. This is a segue, but to all the Week 10 football teams, be nice on the sidelines, right? Yes. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about my experience on the sidelines and how it just seems really. Some teams seem to be really poor in their behavior toward officials, and I'm talking mostly the assistant coaches. And we need to go through all that again, but we did get some feedback from the Evergreen Football Officials Association, and basically agreeing that it's bad, but there's a reason why it's even worse for them. Is they put a lot of their new officials on the sideline. Mm-hmm. So if assistant coaches are just complaining after every play, especially if you're winning the game by a bunch in the fourth quarter and you're still doing it.
That's a hold.
There's just not, you just don't get paid enough to hear abuse for 2 hours. And so it's another reason why they're losing. Right. We're all losing officials in almost all sports. And holy cow, we got some guys that have been retired for 2 years and they keep being asked to come back, and because we don't have enough of them. So please, let's clean up the sideline behavior.
Well, and
Cale?
being one of the officials on the sideline, I mean, it's not like that's an easy job because you are responsible for probably the sport that we all love, the most inexact science of football is spotting the football after a play, and those are the guys that are in charge of that.
The sideline guys.
And I tell you, love my wife to death. She watches a lot of football with me and has become pretty adept as a football fan. And it just drives her every Saturday or Sunday. Why won't they put a chip in the ball that tells you? And I'm like, well, but what if the ball's turned? We should be able to. And she's not wrong. We should be able to figure out a better system than looking, especially on a goal line where it's a massive scrum and neither guy can see where the ball is, and you're just guessing where to put it.
Yeah. I've got a response to that, Tony, but I'm going to let you go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, she's right. The NFL should put a chip in the ball.
Yes.
The NCAA should put a chip on the ball.
Oh, there's no way high school. Yeah, you're right.
But McKenzie and Kiggins can't figure out the dang play clock.
Whoa.
The play clocks don't work in McKenzie and Kiggins.
Sure it does.
Whoa, yeah, they do.
Half the time.
Come on.
Come on.
Jeez.
Have the play. Now, I haven't been to McKenzie a whole lot this year.
Yeah,
I've been there twice.
It's worked every week, man.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think weren't you at a Blazer game one of those nights? No, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway,
He's running the grill.
Anyway, but it's just funny that we have these great, incredible stadiums. We got 4A teams, 3A teams playing at these stadiums, and we can't get that to work. And so I just don't think we're ever going to get the chip in the football to work at McKenzie Stadium.
Well, definitely not. Actually, that's my response to it. Like, do you know how many footballs are used during a game? And how many chips that would be? And then but
that would be more expensive than the shot clocks in basketball.
Correct.
Because remember, Oregon high schools were like, we can't have a shot clock. Look how expensive that would be.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, right. So anyway, okay. So I wanted to. It's going to start off as a me thing. It's all about me, Tony. You know that. It's all about me. So.
Go Raiders.
So in the past, you guys have kind of talked a little bit, or I've mentioned it, that my role at Clark County Today, the news organization, has changed so much since I got here 7 years ago. And I am so proud that everyone still thinks of me as the high school sports reporter. I love that. But I just don't do as much of that anymore. And it really hit me during this election season because I've done a whole lot of stuff. And a couple weeks ago, I was able to say hello to the United States Speaker of the House because of this job assignment I was doing. He was here, campaigning in Clark County, and I covered it, and I actually said hello to him. And I've never been to an event where you could look over in the other building and there's Secret Service on the roof.
Right.
So I'm doing that, and then yesterday I singing "My Country 'Tis of Thee" at a Veterans Day event at Kingsway Christian High School with the mayor of Vancouver.
That's cool.
And that was really cool because I was invited as a journalist, and then they found out, well, wait a minute, you're also a veteran. So I was invited to work, and then I was put in the seats with all the veterans, and I was right next to the guest of honor, the mayor. So I thought that was really cool. But I've done a lot of different things now, but I will always want to go to high school football on Friday nights. But I'm energized by doing this. Sometimes I curse my boss because when you're working news, it doesn't make everyone happy. When I'm Positive Paul and being sports, it's usually a happy story for high school football or high school anything. And I'm still going to do those stories. I'm still going to do human interest stories on our high school athletes. I will always do that. But my role has changed, and it got me thinking. You guys have changed too in your roles. I knew Cale. I think he was 19 when he was the head coach at Evergreen. Because you look 31 now, so I just assumed no.
There's a lot of gray in my beard, Paul.
You were, yeah. I just thought it was blonde. So anyway, honestly though, you were a young head coach at Evergreen at Juanita first, which is I don't know what they were thinking, but and after that year, that's why you left, right? No, okay,
right.
You left because the Evergreen Evergreen job opened up. You got the Evergreen job. A couple years later, you're a state champion. A couple years after that, you take Union to the state championship game, and you were rolling. And I'm sitting there going, my gosh, this guy's got all these wins, and he's 29 years old. Maybe. Well, that was
no. At that point when I stepped away.
Yeah. When you stepped away, how old were you?
40.
You were not. 40.
I turned. Well, I was 39 the last football season I coached.
Gotcha. Yeah. But my point is that you could have kept going, and if you had kept going, you'd be way up there on those coaching wins lists. Sorry, you just kind of stopped. It's really weird. But no. And then Tony, you teacher first,
teacher and
coach before you got into admin. So I wanted to get your stories on how you guys moved on from being on the sidelines, for example.
Sure.
Tony, go ahead.
Well, I mean, just teacher and coach. And I had a lot of good mentors, and I decided I wanted to be an AD. And I happened to be able to become athletic director at the school that I had taught and coached at that point for, I guess, it was 16 years. Mm-hmm. So, and that was coming out of my master's program and all that. That was my dream job, to be athletic director at River, and was able to do that. And but I was also an associate principal, and the district said, we need your services elsewhere. So I didn't realize how much I was working as athletic director until I didn't have to work as athletic director anymore.
Amen.
I think I've mentioned this.
Amen.
I've mentioned this before, probably on the podcast. I think my last year at River, I went back to count because somebody asked me, and one of our coaches, and I think I did like 81 nights.
Right.
And that's a very unique Columbia River thing, just based on 2 soccer Final Fours and hosting home games and just stuff like that. But it was it was a great professional and personal thrill. Mm-hmm. Made a ton of good friends, and but at this point in my career, I don't know if I could do full-time AD like that again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you that I was scared when I made a career change about 7 years ago, or a job change.
Yeah.
And then I was scared with this transition. It's like, I'm just a sports guy. I can't do this new stuff, but I've surprised myself. I can do it. But I'm wondering, you left your dream job and you didn't voluntarily leave your dream job.
I needed to work, and the district said, we need you over here.
So, and you have since told me, though, that it has also kind of rejuvenated you being at Fort Vancouver. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, again, leaving River, it was a shock. And I'll be honest, I told my boss's boss at the time, I said, I'm not happy. Right. Do I want to stay here, or I'm looking, how about maybe this? And, in her wisdom, she just said, I'll give you a day and let's talk. And so I talked to a couple of people, and was able to talk to the principal heading over to Fort at that time, Kurt Scheidel. And, I'll be honest, I even asked Kurt, like, hey, can I be AD at Fort? That's how badly I still wanted to do it. And he said, I have different ideas of what the associate principals need to do. I'm going to be able to probably get an athletic director, more of just an AD type. And, James Ensley did that for the last 5 years. But going to Fort has rejuvenated my career as an educator. Mm-hmm. It made me able to see more strengths and deficiencies in the school system that I work in. And so it has been rejuvenating that way.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Cale, again, you were on your way to becoming the greatest coach in the history of Southwest Washington, and then you said, nope, I don't want this. No.
Well, there was this one sports reporter who's just annoying the heck out of me, and I just had to get away from him, man.
That's touche.
Well, so I had completed my administrative program. I actually wrapped it up in the 2004-2005 school year. So I was fortunate that our district at that time had an athletic coordinator position in the building that I was doing, and then we made the move to the athletic director, the standalone athletic director positions, and you could still coach. We still allowed you to coach a sport while you were doing that. So that kind of let me keep my feet in two different kind of tracks or in two different pools, and so I was still doing the administrative stuff and was still a part of that. I was lucky I had a principal at Union, Brian Grimstead, who let me take on some other administrative roles so I could, because one thing about, and Tony can speak to this, is when you have your administrative degree, you it's kind of use it or lose it a little bit within a district. So it allowed me to kind of maintain my foot in that world, but still do what I was really passionate about, which was coaching high school football. And then, the district decided we'd had a district athletic director position that Jim Hudson had done, and he had some health issues, and so that role had kind of gone away a little bit for a while, and the district made the decision that they wanted to bring that full-time position back. And it was obviously something that I was, from an administrative standpoint, I saw it as a real kind of it was an opportunity that I had to think long and hard about whether or not I was going to pass that up, because it probably wasn't going to be there in the near future if I did. And it was a good time for me to look at stepping away from football. My kids were both young at that point in time, and I think I told people that fall they had played combined 40 plus soccer games on Saturday, and I think I'd seen like 3.
Right.
And
oh my gosh! So you got to miss 37 soccer games? I would have begged to be the head basketball coach.
Youth soccer games at that, Paul.
Yes.
I
would have signed up to be head coach of the JV team too.
I use that as an example of what you miss when you're a head football coach, and obviously there were other things that in addition to that, and so it just. It was a good time, and there was an alternative way for me to stay involved and do something that I really was equally as passionate about. And it's just it was different. I get questions all the time. Do you miss it? The first year or two was really hard, especially because of my role. I was still. We were hosting games at I was watching Union play, and they were my guys. Those were kids I coached, right? And so I had I had close relationships with those kids, and so that was definitely a challenge. Being frank, there were things that I didn't miss. It's just like any job, right? There isn't the job where I love everything about my job, right? And so there were things that I didn't miss. And the further I've gotten away from being on the sideline, the easier that has gotten to be in the stadium and not feel like, we should be running this or we should be doing, what. You start looking at it through a different lens.
I've got community notes on X or Twitter. So I've got 2 community notes. One, remember, Cale said something like he had to get out because he was tired of talking to some pesky journalist. Well, he's still in a role where he has to talk to the same pesky journalist.
Right.
And sometimes it's about important stuff, not just because why didn't you go for it on 4th down?
Yeah, we're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about some more important
sometimes
stuff.
we have to talk about real serious stuff, so that's bad. And then the other community note is, hey, this is Paul Valencia talking. I love all athletes that I cover. Every athlete works as hard on his or her craft as any other athlete in any sport, whether it's bowling, football, or whatever. So yes, I do take shots at soccer, but that's more kind of like an Army and Navy thing, and I'm going to get into that in a bit. Army guys can take shots at Navy guys and vice versa, but I still respect everybody who served, or in this case, I respect everybody. Anybody who's been a varsity athlete in high school nowadays works so hard to get to that spot. So I made a shot at soccer, but consider it's like, sibling.
Yeah, I'm sure your Camus loyalists will have something to say about that, right?
Yeah, here we go.
Soccer Town, USA, right?
Yeah. Hey, speaking of other athletes, cross-country championships is this weekend, right, Cale?
Yeah.
So they do that at a golf course in Tri-Cities. So that'd be... I'd like to get a tee time on that day to see.
Yes.
If they're running right down the fairway, there's no way I'd hit them.
Right. You're safe. You guys are safe. Just stay out of the rough. You guys are safe. The sand, the water, stay out of there.
Yeah. But
actually, run right across the green because that's very
my
safe.
ball's never going there. Right. So hey, best of luck to the Clark County runners who have qualified there. Let's see, state soccer is coming up next week. It starts, right? I think next week.
Yes.
Tuesday.
And then state volleyball they do it in a couple of weeks, different places, if I recall.
Yeah, it just depends on what classification you are.
But I have to say, just looking at the coaches, I get access to the coaches poll. Camas is number 2 in 4A, and I think I've been misled because earlier in the year I did a story on a Camas athlete, and we're very young this year, Paul. They're very young, and they're just trying to learn how to win. The rest of the coaches in the state think they're the second best team in the state.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty darn good.
Yeah. And then, Prairie's number 7 in 3A. Columbia River is number 3 in 2A. And, hey, it's a different year. But when you've won it like 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, it's a ton of years in a row.
The girls have won it 3 times.
3 times, and then Ridgeville, I think, won the previous 2. When you've won it 3 years in a row, shouldn't you just be number 1 until someone knocks you off?
The royal principle, is that kind of what you're getting at there?
Exactly, until someone beats you. So anyway, but we'll get into that in a couple. On our next podcast, we'll see what's going on with that.
Sure.
Again, I told you we are we're recording this on November 7th. So on Monday is Veterans Day, and another personal story. Yes, I am a veteran. I can't say for sure that I'm the only Clark County-based journalist who is a veteran, but when I left my previous post, we thought I was the only.
Okay.
Someone mentioned that they think I was the only one there because someone had retired from there who had been a veteran. But I don't know. But it's something that I'm more proud of my service now than I was back when I did it. When you're 18 to 21 is when I served, and I was proud to serve then, but you just don't even grab the big picture of it all.
Right.
But I wanted to just tell you that, I do appreciate Veterans Day activities and being asked to attend, like the Kingsway Christian thing yesterday was fantastic. It was incredible. And I've done some things at Cascade Middle School, Cale, when my daughter was going there. They had parents who were veterans coming and stuff. But it was the Community Military Appreciation Committee, which is based here in Vancouver. A guy there told me how important it is if you've served, even if you never served overseas or even if you never served in a war. I served during Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, but I wasn't over there. I was at Fort Drum, New York, and Fort Lewis, Washington. I never served. But he talked about how important it is to remind folks that there's so many different jobs in the military.
Right.
And if you served, it's a big deal. And there's less and less that are out there in the world. And in fact, I don't know how many journalists there are that are doing it. So anyway, it does make me feel. I feel good about that. I always tell people I wasn't a great soldier, but I was an honorable one, and that matters.
That's huge.
Very, very
Absolutely.
deeply. To me.
Integrity.
So,
absolutely.
So I do, and then you guys will like so at Raider games or at NFL games, they ask, like in the third quarter, any veteran to stand up. So me and there's this Marine who's about 70, he might be 80 years old. There's this former Marine. He sits right behind me, and we stand up and we shake hands, and we always tease each other, about he's a Marine, so he's got to make fun of the Army. And
well, you're the bus drivers.
Yeah, exactly. So but anyway, I if you ever see me out and about and want to, and you're a veteran and you want to say hello and talk about it, I'd love to hear your experience. I was never in harm's way, but you are in harm's way when you put your hand up and you give away some of your rights.
Even support staff, like you said.
I do want to say Happy Veterans Day to all veterans out there.
Yep. Echo that
Thank
for
you
sure.
for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, pro and college sports. We wanted to say congratulations to the Dodgers, right? The underdogs, weren't they?
The 300 mil underdogs.
Yeah.
And I gotta give some credit to baseball though. They've had a whole lot of different champions over the years.
Yes.
And we talk about no salary cap and how Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees and Red Sox they just buy all these World Series, but They really don't. They buy their way to the playoffs because almost all of them make the playoffs.
Yep.
Well, the not everyone. There's usually, like the Mets. The Mets punt away a bunch of money. The Mariners don't try. They don't. They don't spend money like these other teams.
They don't spend money.
They don't. Spend
period.
Money. Yeah. So,
but Tony, we spend money on them.
I thought that's how it works. Reciprocity on here. John Stanton, if you're listening.
Yeah, if you're just gonna pocket it, Johnny, give it back, man.
No kidding. So, but anyway, it's interesting that it was Dodgers and the Yankees this time, but it isn't always that way. Didn't Kansas City win it recently, or I don't know? I don't know.
Was that?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
15.
Yeah, I mean
2015.
I don't know if that's recent.
Texas, they spent a bunch of money.
Texas signed the $500 million infield.
Yeah, but it's still.
But yeah,
it's a bunch of different teams. It's not like the NBA where it seems even the NBA's had a few different champions now.
Yeah.
But for a while there, the NBA it's just the same teams. But anyway, congratulations to the Dodgers. Remember, I picked them only because I love Fernando Valenzuela and he passed away. So
they won in honor of him.
Yes. All right. Pro football. I can guarantee you, Tony, our Raiders are not losing this weekend.
Well, they play BYE?
They are playing BYE.
Yeah.
Hey, well, that can't be because the Hawks are playing the same team.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is like Compass School. This is Central BYE.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Cale, I can tell you what it's like for me because I'm rooting for possibly the worst team in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
But what's it like to root for a team that isn't the worst, but also drives you nuts?
They're maddening. They're maddening. It's been interesting to watch them. And the thing that is frustrating to me about this is I do believe that we needed a coaching change, and I do believe that Mike McDonald is going to be a very good head coach. There's just a huge difference between being a defensive coordinator and being a head coach. And I hope he's learning because quite frankly, and this, the only way I can put it is we look like we're not very well coached because we do things that we lose games. We find ways to lose games as opposed to making the other team beat us.
Right.
And that's frustrating. As a fan, that's super frustrating to watch.
So, as you know, I watch every second of every Raider game, but I'm also a huge fan of the NFL. And so when the Raiders stop playing, like they play at 10 a.m., I'm watching the afternoon game. But I'm not as interested in like every play of the Seahawks. But I did watch the end of the Seahawks game. And it's like, gosh, there's no way the coach said, "Hey, Gino, throw it to the other team." So I don't think that was in the plan.
But I mean, there's just so many details that are just, that you can tell when a team is, there's just attention to detail, right? I mean, in the NFL, you shouldn't have three consecutive weeks quarterback center exchange issues that cost you scoring opportunity. I mean, you don't see that.
Right.
You go see you could go watch CCYF football on Saturdays so it's things like that. We're one of the most penalized teams in the league. I mean, Mike did not tell Gino to throw it 3 times to our
that one he
opponent.
was trying to throw away.
Oh my gosh! That turned into a 103-yard
no, the
return.
other one after that second one. Right when he was just
back
like
to back,
bad screen, and he was just going to like spike it, and that guy jumped it.
Yeah. And then they lift your spirits by forcing overtime because their defense got the ball back.
And Gino, I mean, he runs the game. He ties the game, right? I mean, at times he looks fantastic. So I am not a Gino hater. In fact, I have been blown away with how good he has been. We're just lucky right now at 4-5 that nobody has taken control of the NFC West, and there's still a path. There's still a chance, Paul.
Do you want me to put this in Mariner equivalents for you?
Okay.
This is when it would be like this. Julio ties the game in the 8th with a home run, or even takes the lead. Let's say Julio with a 3-run homer gives the Mariner a 1-run lead, and we're just going to bring in Munoz.
Oh boy!
But he walks the yard, and then there's a bloop single, and 2 runs score, and then the Mariners end the bottom of the 9th with the bases loaded.
Yep.
And no outs.
Yes.
Well, there's that, but that's
They have to load
what
them
I've
with
seen
no
of the
outs.
Seahawks this year is that
Yeah.
Mariner scenario.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, no, he's not wrong. He's not wrong because I watch both teams religiously.
So,
And,
but you don't want Minshew to come back to Washington, to the state of Washington, do you? Yeah.
well, only if there's somehow that means we're playing the Raiders because I think we could beat them.
Yeah, yes.
Ouch.
Ooh, oh, yes, it's been rough. So
I mean, Paul,
so,
the Raiders are bringing back Norv Turner.
Yeah,
What are we doing?
I know.
What are we doing?
It's we're
I'm
not,
so-
we're
I'm so
not
done.
losing this week. That's what we're
Okay,
doing. We're
I'm so
not
done
losing
now.
this week.
Well,
It
and
just
you
maddened
know,
me.
here's the other sad thing. There's like it's not like this isn't a year to suck for luck. I mean, there's no silver bullet out there.
You got the Colorado Deion son.
Yeah,
And you got the Miami quarterback.
Yeah,
Is it
Cam
Ward?
Ward, was a former Coug.
Who was
former
told to
Coug.
stay in because nobody wanted to
Right.
draft him.
But, yeah. By the way, how many Division I programs are there? I mean, we're talking like the main. Is there 100? I don't know.
Oh, you mean just the Power Five?
Yeah. Power Five. Yeah. There's like
What is that?
Whatever. I mean, okay,
60 maybe?
60. Okay.
60 to 65.
So that means
I
there's
don't know.
60 Division I starting quarterbacks. I would take any of the 60 over what the Raiders have put on the field.
I think you could probably throw some 1AA or
exactly.
FCS
that's
schools in
true.
there.
Good
You might even
point.
throw some D2 quarterbacks in there, Paul. Don't sleep on those guys.
I will not. So, and then my football hell season continues because actually, I'm a positive guy. My nickname is Positive Paul.
You are a
And
positive guy.
I
You
am
are
a
a
It is
positive
positive
guy.
Paul Valencia.
But I've told you all that the dark side comes out in college football. My dislike for the Oregon Ducks is stronger than any like for any other
Wow.
team in college.
Wow.
I don't remember
So-
this last year.
Okay, so this is really hellish. Is that in the past?
yeah.
In the past, one loss might knock you out of the 4-game playoffs, and 2 would absolutely do it.
Right.
Well, now the Ducks are just getting better and better. I mean, they could have lost to Idaho or whatever team they played that first week.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're
Idaho.
getting
State had
better
a lead
and
on
better and better, and they are. I grant you, they are the best.
Which
team in
doesn't
the
look as
country.
bad anymore, though.
Correct.
But now, even if they lost 2 of the next 3 games, they're still going to make the playoffs. So yeah. Well, if they went,
They're
the
not
Huskies
going to fall.
beat
off
them-
but
they're
they're
not
not
going
going
to
to lose 2 games. That's the thing.
But well, right. But
No.
if the Huskies beat
That
Oregon
game's
and
in-
Eugene,
yeah,
they're
that
not
game's
going.
in
They're not in
Eugene.
the top 12.
Well, right. No, they're in the top 12 if they only lose 1.
Correct.
Yeah, but you think if they lose 2.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they're going to lose 2. I think
No,
they're,
I
I think
don't
they're going to
either.
run the table.
And I'm dreading
So
that
my happiest day in
November
college
30th.
football is when the Oregon Ducks are eliminated from national championship. So I'm going to have to wait till flipping December or January.
Right.
Or it may not even happen.
No, it may not happen.
They may not have. They are good.
They are good.
I hope
very
you hear
good.
in my voice, Oregon Duck fans, that I respect your team. Oh my gosh, yes. But it's
They
just-
are good.
It's just not going to be fun. That's by the way, it's great. It's a great Vegas guys weekend. It's the NFL.
Oh, are you doing that big one?
The NFL divisional playoffs are that weekend, and then Monday is the national championship game.
Oh, okay.
So we're staying. We're
yeah,
going
you
to
guys
watch
did
all
that big
the
suite,
football games. Yep,
Yeah.
and then we're going to stay one more night
Kel
and
and I
watch
will just hitch along.
And
or
I
something.
yeah. So yeah, that would be fun.
I'll stay in the Caesar Sportsbook.
There you go.
Awesome. All right. One last thing we got to get to is that the radio stations, a couple of them in Portland now, are doing Christmas music. Is it too
Yeah.
early?
Oh, it's way too early, man.
See, I like the idea of doing it during election week. I really did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because I enjoy Christmas music,
November 1 on, I'm good now.
Yeah.
I used to be, but
Right.
let's just go.
but
I enjoy it.
But Kale and I have to say something though. Do not accept a playlist from Christmas music from Tony unless
Paul
I'm
is
halfway
saying-
done.
unless he has edited it.
Paul is saying that. I don't.
I know.
because
It's
I don't
almost
mind
done.
this song.
So
that
just be ready.
I mean,
It's one song by
Sir
Paul McCartney, one of the
Sir.
greatest songwriters
wonderful-
of all time.
Paul McCartney.
Sir Paul McCartney wrote one of the worst Christmas songs
Whatever.
of all time.
But
That's all
was
I'm
it?
saying.
Was it? It was actually recorded. Didn't Wings record it, or was it? Is it
Well,
just
I think
Paul?
it's
It's just Paul.
It was Paul and Linda, I think, by himself after
whatever. It's ball humbug. That's what I say, Tony.
That's fine.
Tony. But Tony, it was very nice of you to send the playlist.
So just be ready the first week of December.
The other songs are awesome, or most of them are awesome. But no, please. That one I turn off before I drive off the road. Merry Christmas, everybody. On that note,
Perfect.
anyway, you guys want to say anything to wrap this up?
No, good luck to the county football
Yeah,
teams.
let's get some wins this week and get a bunch of teams in the round of 16 or 12.
Or 12. Yeah. Take care, everybody.